So this is my great friend Kayak.
One second, can you give me permissions to turn on my video?
And this is John Mumkey, or as Kayak likes to refer to him as, Mumkey Jones. Kayak offered to debate Mumkey on the topic of absolute divine simplicity versus energy's essence distinction, or as Kayak likes to refer to it as, polytheism. And I must say, this was a dumpster fire. So right before we roll into this debate recording, I recommend you guys pause the video right now and get some popcorn while you can, because, once again, not only a debate, but also a dumpster fire. I hope you guys enjoy this debate. Peace.
All right, you can go first, by the way.
Are you ready?
Sure thing.
All
All right, wait. Therese Bomb, are you ready?
Sorry?
Therese Bomb, are you ready?
Yeah, we're going right now.
All right.
All right, here, let me just record myself. All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy... Oh, my bad. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. All right, so my name is Mumk. My real name is John, in blessed memory of St. John of Damascus. I'm an Eastern Orthodox Christian through the Russian Orthodox Church. And today I'm going to be defending the Eastern Orthodox dogma, that is essence energy distinction. Before we get into the very philosophical and methodological explications of the essence energy distinction or any doctrine concerning metaphysics or epistemology, etc., we first have to look at the basics. And Kayak has made it very clear that he holds on to Roman Catholic doctrine. So I'm going to be expressing the theology and the philosophy, because they're not divorced, but rather bounded together, of the Holy Church Fathers, and shows how it proves the Eastern Orthodox dogma of the essence energy distinction. So people think that a real distinction means division or separation. A real distinction simply means a lack of identity or really not identical. Now, this would not entail division, because by that same logic, you would say that in human beings, there's a division between the soul and body. But obviously that is not the case, and I'll demonstrate this through Christology. So St. Maximus the Confessor makes it very clear in his Disputations of Pyrrhus that how we know Christology affects how we know triadology. So to make any claims of triadology, one second, let me just put this back on voice chat. Yeah. So to make any claims on triadology, well, not any claims, but to speak on triadology, we first look at Christology. And what does Christology tells us? Well, St. Cyril of Alexandria says to us in his second letter to Nestorius, he says that the two natures in Christ, both natures, are really different and really distinct. He says that they're different in Christ, but this does not suffer division, right? So this is a clear example from the Church Fathers that a difference or a real distinction would not entail division, right? And St. Cyril of Alexandria explicates on this in his book On the Unity of Christ, page 66. He uses the term miaphysis. Now, what does miaphysis mean? Miaphysis means that Christ is one composite hypostasis in theory only. That is, he is one real divine hypostasis who assumes human nature, and that human nature, in theory, has a human hypostasis, but in reality, Christ is one real divine hypostasis, contrary to what the non-Chalcedonians thinks of miaphysis. And St. Cyril explicated on this by using the body-soul analogy. That is, although in a human being, the body and soul are really distinct and are clearly not identical, this does not suffer division in the human being, right? And St. Athanasius, he speaks on this. St. Athanasius of Alexandria, he speaks on Christology in his book On the Incarnation of Christ. And in that very book, in chapter 54, he affirms essence energy distinction. He talks about how we know God by his energies, and he's referring back to what he says throughout the entire book of On the Incarnation, and speaks on that essence energy distinction, first applying it to Christ and then applying it to the entire Trinity. So if we can say that the Lord Jesus Christ, who in the Lord Jesus Christ there are two distinct natures, if we can say that that distinction does not entail division, then why can't we do what all the Church Fathers did in saying that Christology is how we know triadology, and say that, okay, well, to posit a real distinction in God between his essence and his uncreated energies, that would mean division. Right? Because division means a separation or splitting up of parts, but this presupposes that the energies are parts in the first place. But the categories of whole and part, in metaphysically speaking and physically speaking as well, is only applicable to that which is substance. So we don't say that the energies are substance. In fact, the same divine Cyril says in book 8 on Dialogues of the Trinity, he says that God is not composed out of essence and energy. But the same divine Cyril says in Thesaurus 9, Thesaurus 17, Thesaurus 18, that essence and energy are not identical, and that creating belongs to the energy, whereas begetting belongs to the nature. Nature and energy are not identical. And then he explicates on this in Thesaurus 31, and saying that if what is of God, referring to the energies as I've shown, if what is of God is identical
John,
to his
fuck me, John. Fuck me. Oh, fuck me, John.
Can someone mute this guy? All right. So anyways, back to the point, right? So as I was saying, right, the categories of whole and parts is not applicable to the energies of God because the energies of God are not substances, right? And Saint Cyril, he actually explains this in Thesaurus 31 and saying, chapter 31, and saying that if what is of God, referring to the energies, as I've shown in Thesaurus 9, Thesaurus 17, and Thesaurus 18, if what is of God is identical to his essence, then God for us would be composed of many substances, right? So what does this tell us? This tells us that the energies cannot be parts because they're not substances. Therefore, that category, both physically and metaphysically speaking, is not applicable to them, right? Now, concerning triadology, St. Maximus the Confessor makes it very clear. And at the Atalastium, question 63.9, he says that in God, right, in God, the essence infinitely transcends the uncreated energies. Now, what does this mean? This means that God's essence transcends, and what this transcendency refers to, it refers to the mode in which you exist, his uncreated energies. Now, the reason why I made the body-soul analogy, as St. Cyril does earlier, is because your soul transcends, being immaterial, transcends your material body, yet is instantiated according to Aristotle and that Emima, who's given an orthodox reading in 200 chapters on theology, pages 43 to 45, right? The soul transcends the body. The soul transcends the body, yet it is fully instantiated in each one of your operative bodily expressions. Transcendency simply refers to the mode in which you exist. That is, that the essence of God is beyond infinity, whereas the energies are infinite, right? Yet it fully subsists in each uncreated energy. So St. Maximus goes on to explain this, and he applies this to the activities of the Holy Spirit, deifying the Church in page 53 of the Ecclesiastical Mystagogy as St. Vladimir Seminary Press. And this does not suffer division because transcendency does not mean you're reducible to one thing or another. And even if it did, this is not applicable because the categories of whole and parts, according to St. Dionysius the Areopagite, chapter 13 of the complete works of St. Dionysius, Western Spirituality Press, page 129, chapter 13 of On the Divine Names, he says that God transcends the logical category. The unity of God transcends the logical categories of whole and parts. So I have a couple challenges for my opponent, right? So you said that you focus mainly on philosophy, right? I want you to also bring in theology into this because theology and philosophy are not divorced from one another. They are bounded together, as I've demonstrated in the fathers, who say that Christology is how we understand triadology, and who make all these analogies and who speak of the transcendency of God's essence in relation to his energies. That is, how his essence relates to his energies is that it transcends them to an infinite degree, an infinite number of time. As St. Gregory Palamas repeats in page 96 of the Western Spirituality Press of Triads 3. And I want you to also explain how philosophically speaking, right, the categories of whole and parts is applicable to that which is that substance. I can see the rest of my time.
So I'm Kayak. That's my introduction. All right. And my point is just that what he's saying is just gibberish, right? It's incoherent.
You cut out there.
Hey, does anyone else hear him? He's cutting out on my end.
You're cutting out, boy.
No, he's still cutting.
Completely unhearable.
My primary contention with what he's saying, right, is that there exists this thing which is non-meteorological composition, right? There's a way in which things can constitute other things, which is not a meteorological relation. I think that this is gibberish, and I'd say that he has another way out of this, right, which is to say that there's, like, attributes are, like, not constituents of states of affairs, and substances. Here's the thing. So, first off, a substance by definition is anything which, like, is a bearer of properties, right? So, first off, to say that the energies are not substances, it's just gibberish to me because they're obviously bearers of properties. They're not bare particulars, right? And they're not modular tropes. They can stand in causal relations, and something which can stand in a relation is apt to have relational properties, right? So the actions cannot, in fact, not be substances, right? That doesn't even make any sense. And the point which he says about non-identity, right? Now, in any, like, normal meteorology, which isn't just rubbish, right? You are going to define proper parthood as parthood with non-identity, right? It's X is a part of Y, and X is not identical to Y. That implies that it's a proper part of Y. Proper part meaning just what normally people call parts, because we can also, there's improper parts, which are just the thing itself, right? Now, his point about theology, like how I need to bring in theology to this, let me put some context to this. I have told him before this debate even happened that this is going to be a debate about philosophy. Every time I talked about this debate, I addressed it as this is a debate about philosophy. We were going to debate about these arguments, like the argument from that you need simplicity for aseity, and then I was just going to show that his view is just not simplicity at all, and he just doesn't understand what he's just kind of like saying nonsense in my view, because non-meteorological composition is nonsense. And right, so he just like brought this out of the blue, right? Like right before the debate, he's just not. He's just like doing an entirely different thing than I asked him to do, right? And that's incredibly dishonest, right? So, and you should know, because I told him that I don't do any historical study, like almost at all. I am like almost entirely focused on philosophy. So that's my response to his challenge for me. I don't need like you're debating the wrong person if you want to do that with me, like entirely. And now about his point about what was the point I was gonna bring up? So all right, now I'm just gonna get to like my opening statement because I'm a bit like upset about him like doing that all of a sudden. So
Well, I don't know. Oh, are you ending your opening statement?
No, I'm starting my opening statements now.
Oh, I thought.
'Cause-
Oh, my bad. Okay, I'll mute myself.
So like my argument is just going to be that constituents of objects, so constituents of state affairs, and state of affairs will just be something being in a certain way, right? So everything that is going to be a state of affairs. Because nothing isn't in a way, right? Everything has properties. I don't believe that there's anything like a bare particular. Well, there's things which have which are like modular tropes, which they are not going to have properties, but they're still going to have be in a certain way because they'll be self-exemplifying. So, like in my view, like the divine essence is self-exemplifying, right? So anything. By the way, let me just mute this person. So anything which is anything which exists, right, is going to be a state of affairs which depends on its constituents for its existence. So unless there's some relation of numeric identity between it and its constituents, it will depend on something else. And the point is, right, that the energies and the attributes are going to be constituents of God. It's fairly easy to show this, because he's going to say that in some sense, like that you can predicate like properties of God of them. Like for example, he'll say that God's energies are him being in the world. Like I know diorites say stuff like this. So like they'll say he's like God ad extra, right, and then God ad intra. So the idea with the energies is that they will be like a mode of being of the divine essence, right? So they're going to, in fact, be a constituent of God, right? So if they're constituents and they're not numerically identical, then unless you're going to have to like come up with a theory of non-meteorological composition, which I'm going to just say that it has been a complete failure. Nobody has ever done this before. Or you're going to have to say that they are proper parts, like metaphysical proper parts of the divine essence. And if you're going to say that, then, well, you have to throw away simplicity. And then you're going to have to throw away aseity too, because states of affairs depend on their constituents for their existence. If you were to say otherwise, then you'd have to like hold to this thing called like nomological necessitarianism, where constituents constitute the states of affairs that they do, and that in like they do in the actual world is a brute fact, right? So according to Armstrong, constituents, like the constituents of a state of affair, like take X being R to Y, where R is an asymmetrical relation. It could also be the case, well, logically possible. It's logically possible for there to be the state of affairs of Y being R to X, and those will all have the same constituents as X being R to Y, right? But those two states of affairs are not numerically identical to each other. And there won't be anything explaining why in the actual world there's only X as being R to Y. It's going to be a more fundamental fact than any of the constituents themselves. So you're going to say that like thick particulars, which is what he calls them, are like more fundamental than the thin particulars. Now this view is just gibber. So the problem with it, right, is that this is going, by saying this, you're going to have to say that like, so the different relations that will hold between universals, like which particulars, thick particulars they'll constitute, is going to, that's like, you could call that a natural law, right? And these natural laws, if they're brute, well, if we're to say that natural laws are like brute facts, because if the relation of constitution is a brute fact, then we're not going to have like any explanation for why, for example, they're like life permitting, for example. We're not going to have any explanation for like all sorts of different features of the ones in the actual world, which are obviously in need of explanation. And the view is just going to be like, it's going to have like no like predictive power. It's just like a bad view. It doesn't have any like theoretical virtues to it. And the point is, I'm going to get from that, is that you can't hold to Armstrong's view. So according to Armstrong, thick, like, there's this like thing called non-meteorological composition, this is exactly what he's saying. He's saying that, for example, there is a way in which the energies can be constituents without them being parts. And that's where he went on this like rant about Christology, right? Which I just think is incoherent. He went on this rant about it, and you're just committed to this thing called non-meteorological composition. Now, another thing is that Armstrong, in order to argue for non-meteorological composition, he appealed to this thing called contemporary extensional meteorology. He appealed to the axiom of extensionality, where wholes are type identical to the sums of their parts. And that view entails meteorological essentialism, because sums cannot gain or lose parts, right? So like x plus y plus z, for example, the sum of x plus y plus z cannot exist without x, y, or z. It would just be gibberish. And if wholes are identical to that, then wholes can't gain or lose their parts. If they're identical to the sum of their parts, then they can't gain or lose parts, right? And since things can gain or lose parts, we know that extensionality is false. So Armstrong, his argument for non-meteorological composition was basically, so he took the view about thin and thick particulars, and then he said that since extensionality would fail to hold for them because there could be different permutations of the same constituents, well, there couldn't be different with meteorological sums, the whole, like, if wholes are identical to meteorological sums, then how they're permuted won't like matter, right? Whether or not they're like the same whole. So the idea, like what Armstrong was saying, was that because they can be permuted into different states of affairs, there must be this like constitution-like or composition-like relationship where extensionality doesn't hold and isn't meteorological, and yada yada yada. And now, if Armstrong's view is false, and that the relation of composition and the relation of constitution are the same thing, then the relation of constitution between essence and energies is going to be the same as the relation of proper parthood, right? So if I mean, that would just entail that they're proper parts. So, all right, I went past my time. All right, so let's go to the open discussion.
All right, I just want to say a couple things on what you had said, and we can go and we can explicate a little bit more and get deeper into the discussion. First off, I don't see any problem in me using the church fathers because you said you wanted to go on a philosophical basis. Well, that's
I want to go in. Well,
one
I'm not
second.
going to. But you can't like
One
the
second.
debate shouldn't be like, oh, the church fathers say this, therefore you're wrong. Like, because that's not. I don't want to have that debate, right?
One second, Kayak, you're misunderstanding me. This is what happens when you don't let me speak. I never said that because the church fathers say it, therefore it's true. Now it's evidence towards the claim because you yourself accept them, but that's not what I was saying. I was saying because this is how they philosophically defend the essence-energy distinction. Therefore, what I'm going to use to defend the doctrine of the essence-energy distinction is not going to be of myself or my own subjective thinking. Rather, it's going to be the objective standards that the church fathers themselves have used to philosophically explicate this doctrine in the ecumenical councils and in their writings.
What is your interpretation of them? It's not. You can't just like directly observe, directly perceive the meaning of a text by looking at it, especially one which you're in an entirely different culture than.
Word concept fallacy. Yes, I'm very aware of the word concept fallacy, which is not what I'm committing.
What? I never accused you of committing a word concept fallacy. What are you talking about?
That's the implication. You're saying you just don't look at the text and just go based on that. That's
not what the word concept fallacy is.
Yes, it is. It's when someone looks at a text and
it's not. No.
The
word concept fallacy isn't when you're. It isn't first off a belief, right? It isn't the belief that, your interpretation of the text is the text. And this is just like a way of mode of direct perception, right? Like that's not at all what the word concept fallacy is.
That's not what I said. I said that the word concept fallacy, if you let me finish, I said that the word concept fallacy is taking a text without any contextualization, and then saying, oh, this is what the text is saying without context, right?
That's not what I accused you of.
What? Sorry?
It's not what I accused you of. I'm accusing you.
One second, that is what you accused me of because I was giving you church fathers.
No, you misunderstood.
All these interpretations.
No, what I accused you of is saying that it's just like that for example, it's like how with direct realism you're just looking at the thing, right? So when you're saying that, oh, I'm just reading the text, right? So this is what the text says, so I'm like right, like you're just saying I am looking at the text, this is what it is, like go.
Yes, that's the word concept fallacy. When you take a text and you're like, oh, this is what these words generally mean, and I'm taking this text and this therefore
the word concept
fallacy. Can you let me speak? Yeah, I understand you're excited, but I'm not trying to walk you. I'm not raising my voice at you. You're the one doing that. So how about this? Do you want to debate about debating, or do you just want to get to the point? Because what I was saying is that the church fathers, they affirmed the essence energy distinction, and then against people who are in opposition to the essence energy distinction, such as you, they used philosophical arguments. And the first one is that how we know Christology affects how we know triadology. Now I have a question. Do you believe that there's division in Christ?
No. But I want to get to this, right? So can you give me an argument?
You're not going to dictate the conversation. You're not going to dictate the conversation. I'm asking.
You're not going to dictate it either.
Yeah, I know. That's why there needs to be this neutrality. I'm okay with talking on both subjects. You seem to be the only one in opposition against. No, I want to speak about my points and not your points.
Ooh.
So are you just going to groan and overtalk me and raise your tone, or do you actually want to get into the
argument? You're overtalking me. I tried to ask you a question. You overtalked me.
You said you were talking about your points, right? And then you stopped talking, and then I made a point back. That's not overtalking you. Anyways, I have a question for you. Is there a real distinction between both of Christ's natures?
Is there a real distinction? Well, there's a mental distinction.
Oh, so
there's a distinction in theoria.
Oh, okay. So you're a Miaphysite, which is condemned in the Council of Chalcedon, which you accept.
What?
Yeah, that's
you think a distinction in theoria between the two natures is condemned? But that's what
1 second, no, that's not what I said. It's in Theoria, this is what St. Cyril says in page 66 of On the Unity of Christ. He speaks about how the human nature has a human hypostasis in Theoria only, whereas Christ is only one real divine hypostasis who had assumed human nature. He makes a real distinction in letter 2 to Nestorius. He's speaking of the human hypostasis of Christ in Theoria only, not Theophysitism. And you would have known that, 1 second, and you would have known this if you read page 530, chapter 8.
Oh no. I already no. At this point, like, I don't even know if I want to continue this, because now I know that you're just like a dishonest person, because I told you specifically what the debate is going to. You're just not having the debate that I told you we were going to have.
I am.
What you're doing is you're just going on these like rants about how I'm a Miaphysite, right? You're going on these rants about how I'm a Christological heretic for agreeing with you, right? You're going on this. You're just going on these rants about interpretation of church fathers when we're supposed to have a fucking discussion about philosophy, right? I just want to have a discussion about philosophy. So can you shut up about them for a second?
And guess what? I'm using the philosophical defenses of the church fathers.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
I realized after enough time that this is just not what you're doing, right? What you're doing is you're trying to make this into a debate about whether or not I'm a heretic or not.
Well, I do believe that you're in heresy, but that's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to get at to the philosophical.
Then why did you randomly accuse me of being a Miaphysite?
Because I asked you a question and you said yes, I believe it's in Theoria only.
But the reason you asked me look, it's very obvious from the context. The reason you asked me the question, shut up. The reason you asked me the question was so you could accuse me of that, right?
No, I didn't.
You're doing a polemical chat to accuse me.
Kayak, you said earlier, I asked you said earlier that you hold on to Roman Catholic beliefs. So when a Roman Catholic says that I believe that there's only two natures in Theoria, the distinction is only in theory, that surprises me because that's not what St. Cyril
That's not what I said.
That's what you said. You said that the distinction is in theory.
I said when you say that there's like a distinction in Theoria and it's inseparable in reality, you're not saying that there's only like a distinction mentally.
But that's not what you have said.
Look.
1 second. Can I say something, Kayak? But that's not what you said. You didn't speak about how their union was real, but the distinction was only in theory.
All right. 1 second. Can we talk about? I just want to talk about non-meteorological constitution, right?
All right, great. We can get to that.
Can we just talk about the thing which we're supposed to be talking about?
1 second, but you never. 1 second.
I told you days before the discussion that we were going to have a debate about non-meteorological composition, and you're not even.
Kayak, you gave me a syllogism, and I didn't know, and you never once said this is only what's going to be on the discussion about. I'm willing to discuss with you on that. I want to bring up my point.
But none of your argument, nothing that you've said so far is even about that, right? Everything you've said so far is just an accusation against me.
It doesn't have to be about that. It just has to be philosophical, as you said.
But you're just like stretching the definition of this, and you're stretching the definition of what a philosophical debate is.
And I have a question. Is a philosophical?
Look. If you understand, look.
Stop interrupting me. I'm trying to make my point, please. This is very rude of you. So I have a question. Is a philosophical discussion?
You're interrupting me.
No, I'm interrupting your interruptions. Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm interrupting your interruptions. That's what I'm doing. I'm interrupting your interruptions. So give me 10 seconds to speak, please.
My interruptions are just me talking normally.
No, it's you over talking me, and then I have to overtalk you because I'm trying to make a point here, and you're not understanding what I'm trying to say. Maybe you would if you gave me 10 seconds to speak. Thank you. So, are you saying that philosophical discussions are reducible to meteorological discussion?
What? No. No, but the discussion at hand is a discussion about meteorology. We're discussing the doctrine.
That's what you said 5 minutes ago. You said it was about philosophy. Now you're pulling a special pleading and saying it's about meteorology.
But no. It's specific. Well, okay, no. When I'm saying it's a philosophical, not theological debate, right? It was implied, right? So it's a discussion about the doctrine of simplicity, that we're going to have a discussion about a specific area of philosophy, not just like any part of philosophy, because that's what the topic is, right? The topic is not philosophy, right? It is a philosophical debate, right? But the topic is ADS, right? It's a debate about parthood, right? about whether or not
You
there
know,
are
you never
parts
one second. You never once said that
of
it's
God,
reducible.
right?
Can I just say very quickly, right?
But I never.
One second, with philosophy, right? One second, the branch of philosophy that deals with causation is metaphysics, and the branch of metaphysics that deals with being is ontology, right? So to say that, no, I just want this to be a purely meteorological discussion, yet a philosophical examination of these doctrines is ignoring ontology and metaphysics.
But I
So
never.
I'm gonna make metaphysical and ontological claims in
Well,
opposition.
first off, meteorology is a part of metaphysics.
I never denied that, but it's not reducible to that.
But I never. Well, but I never said that this is a debate only on meteorology. But the main point of the debate is meteorology, right?
Okay, great. You can say that. That's the main point.
It's a
but I also
debate.
wanna
It's a
make
debate
sure-
about whether or not there are proper parts of God. How is this not a debate about meteorology? Mostly, it's primarily a debate about meteorology, and you haven't even said a single thing about meteorology throughout your entire.
Right, and that's what-
I suppose
and
you
that's-
You said like
that's one
one or
second,
two
and that's
things,
what I'll get
but you
to.
never.
That's what I'll
But you
get
never
to.
like made an argument for them. You just like
second,
stated
I wanna
like
make my points as
division
well.
doesn't apply composition like without giving a philosophical argument for it.
Yes, I did give a philosophical argument.
What's
by-
your philosophical argument for distinction does not apply composition? Tell me right now.
Oh, very simple. The two natures of Christ don't imply that Christ is
Exactly, it's a theological argument. Shut up.
One second.
Give me a
It's
philosophical
one second,
argument.
One second. It's philosophical. It's philosophical because Saint Cyril of Alexandria uses the body-soul analogy for his metaphysics formula, right? And speaking of the two natures of Christ.
I told you. Does everybody else here think this is dishonest? When I said this is going to be a philosophical debate about this specific topic,
How's that not a
and you
philosophical?
give me
How's that not a philosophical point?
because you're arguing. That's obviously a
Aristotle
theological argument. It's like
himself,
very
one second.
obviously a theological
One
argument.
second.
Anybody with
Aristotle
more than
himself,
half
and I
a
made
brain
this-
will find that.
One second, and I made this in my opening statement. I talked about how the soul is fully instantiated in the operative bodily expressions, right? Aristotle himself, a philosopher, uses this in his book De Anima, right? On the soul, right? One second. And Saint Cyril of Alexandria, when speaking of the body-soul analogy, he uses this to show that yes, Christ is in two distinct natures, as he says in letter 53, but in letter 2 to Nestorius, he says this is not separate division. That's my philosophical argument.
Well, wait. When he says it doesn't suffer division, he's saying that the body and the soul are in some way like inseparable, right? He's not saying that they aren't parts, because it's very, very obvious to anybody who knows anything about hylomorphism that the idea of the main thesis of hylomorphism is that the form and the matter are parts of the substance, right? So when you're bringing up this as an analogy, you're giving an example specifically of two things being parts as an example of two things not being parts. What?
Yes, and that's
Because
exactly
because
what-
it's literally look
One
the
second,
doctrine of
that's the point-
hylomorphism
that was the
is
point- that was the point I was trying to
it's that form and matter are parts of wholes, right?
All right, great.
So why-
So one second. So when I had made that analogy, right? Now that you have taken that analogy and have explicated more to get into meteorology, I have no problem with that. But first, I want to.
All right.
And go into meteorology.
So how is the example of the soul and the body being indivisible a proof that we're talking about indivisibility in the sense of not being proper parts instead of just being inseparable, as in they're necessarily concomitant with each other or something? Every time there's a body, there's going to be a soul, right? That's what they mean when they say it's indivisible. You can't separate them. They're not saying that they aren't parts.
And every time you have an essence, there's going to be an essential operation proceeding from it.
What is
That's
okay?
what
All
it
right,
is.
so
One second,
so
second.
can you give me an inference from every time there's an essence that has?
One second, just let me say something very quickly. That's one of the basics of essentialism, that no property that proceeds from one's essence is a part of the essence.
No property. What?
Yeah,
No. That's not true at all. What?
That's one of the basics of essentialism, that no property that proceeds from one's essence is a part of the essence. That's part of essentialism.
What do you mean by proceed? Really quickly, what do you mean by proceed?
Moves out from.
What do you mean by moves out from?
Moves
You
out
mean
from,
was brought from potency to act?
One second. External to.
How is it a thesis of essentialism that extrinsic properties are not parts?
Are not parts, they're not part of the essence. But then I'm going to take that principle and
that's obvious.
One second, and then I'm going to take
That's
that
true by definition.
One second, and I'm going to take that principle and apply it to the essence energy distinction, that the energies, the energies wouldn't be parts because they're not substances.
Wait, but they're bearers of properties. They stand in causal relations.
No, the energies themselves are properties that proceed from the essence, because essence, in many contexts, in many contextualizations, is synonymous with nature. Nature, by definition, means the properties or characteristics of something. Not to say that nature is a bundle of properties, but to say that nature is something where all these properties proceed from, and as the analogy that the fathers use, common energy proves common nature. To affirm the essence energy distinction, which you're arguing against.
Can you say that? Can you say that again, but like in like a less like completely incoherent way?
You can
Energy is
strong-
common. You just like strung a bunch of words together.
Okay, you can say that. That doesn't answer my point.
That you did. Like, okay, now can you define what a nature is?
Nature is synonymous with essence, and in triadology, according to Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, one second, can you mute yourself? Your typing is very loud. So anyways, essence, according to Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, can you mute yourself? Your typing is very loud, please. All right. So anyways, essence, according to Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, right, is God as he is in his superessential transcendency and interbeing, whereas the energies of God are God himself in his operations moving and pulsing into creation.
Can you wait? Say that again, because I had to ban somebody.
Oh, my bad. So essence, by definition, right, nature in many of these contexts is used synonymously with essence. And according to Saint Dionysius the Areopagite and on the divine names, the essence of God is God as he is in his superessential transcendency and interbeing, whereas the energies of God are the processions of God's divine activities proceeding from his operative power, that is God himself in his operations moving and pulsing into creation.
Are you just reading this off of like a book? Is that why you're able to talk so fast?
No, I'm sharing my screen. So I'm sharing my screen. So you can look at the recording of me and you can see I'm not looking at anything. I'm walking around as we actually talk about this.
You're not sharing your screen. Wait, but you're not sharing your screen.
No, I'm talking about on Panto, my screen recorder. That's what I'm doing. Right? Because
okay. So that's why I wasn't able to follow anything you were saying, because you were like basing this off of like your own screen recording.
No, not my own screen recording. I'm screen recording, so it shows that I'm not going on any other tabs or, reading off anything. I'm doing this all out of memory, and I'm walking around my basement as we have this discussion.
I'll get back on topic.
Yeah, so I just want like a philosophical, not a theological, and stop being a sophist, a philosophical argument for non-meteorological composition. And I want wait, this will actually clear everything up. I want you to give me a definition of proper parthood. Also, properties are parts of substances. So like your point about substances being the only things which could be parts, it's just like wrong.
Not according to essentialism. I can get you to scan if
no,
you want.
No, that's not true. Essential, okay, no. It's not like to say that it's a thesis of essentialism.
Kayak, why are you
look.
Kayak, why are you like this? Why do you
look? First off, I'm not. No, look. First off,
Kayak, can I say something? Just give me 10 seconds, please. Kayak, why do you just one second?
All right, so I just muted him. So let me point out something. Okay, so first off, right, just because something isn't a part of the essence doesn't mean it's not a part of the substance, right? Like that just doesn't follow. It's not a thesis of essentialism that extrinsic properties aren't parts of the substance. So it's not a thesis of essentialism that the energies wouldn't be like parts of God, right? Like it wouldn't follow from them not being parts of the essence that it's not part of God if you're defining God as the substance, right? All right, now I'm unmuting him.
1 second. So can I say something? So Kayak, listen, I haven't like raised my tone at you unless unless you're interrupting me, right? What I want to have a discussion with you. I don't know why you can't just have a discussion without just yelling. No. I'm trying to have a discussion with you. So to respond to your point, I want to get to meteorology. Since you want to get to meteorology, does meteorology have a connection with atomism? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So atomism, right, is an ontology or philosophy on nature, right? So do you believe that meteorological atomism has any bounding with scientific atomism?
No.
Oh, no. So do you know what science is rooted in?
I don't understand the question.
Oh, do you know what
do you mean by rooted in?
Do you know what it's preconditioned by?
Oh no.
It's preconditioned by
Oh,
logic.
no.
One second. It's preconditioned by logic and mathematics, and logic itself is preconditioned in metalogical discussion within philosophy. So to say that there is no bounding whatsoever is just absolutely false, because both meteorological atomism and scientific atomism are ultimately rooted in philosophy. So they do have some bounding. So anyways, let me tell you something about
Look, when I say that they're not related, I'm just saying that meteorological atomism is not like logical. It's not like it is not the same thing at all as scientific atomism, right? And the sense in which they're both atomism is not the same sense, right? That's what I mean when I say they're not related. I'm not saying that in no sense are they related at all, right? Because first off, like them not being the same thing is a relation holding between the two. So you're just like misinterpreting me, right? You're just like equivocating.
Now that you're less vague and you've explicated more, I understand your position. So anyways, when it comes to scientific atomism, we just explained something. When it comes to scientific atomism, and I'm going to apply this principle unless you beg to differ, right? With meteorological atomism, it presupposes composition. How do we know this? It presupposes that the atom, right, has three layers: n equals 1, n equals 2, and n equals 3. Between n equals 1 and n equals 2, there's the photon energy that's being emitted that increases the orbit of the electron, which orbits around the nucleus, which is composite of protons, which is composite of, one second, can you stop typing so loud? Which is composite of quarks, right? So when it comes to atomism, whether scientific or meteorological atomism, it presupposes composition, as I've just demonstrated.
No, you can't make this mistake. Okay, now, first off, meteorological nihilists are all atomists. So this is wrong. Like you're just so wrong. Okay, now, atomism, right? It's the thesis that physical symbols exist, and then it would be that gunk does not exist, right? There are like fundamentally just symbols, right? That's what meteorological atomism is. There's no atomless gunk, right? That's what it is. And meteorological nihilists, people who deny that there's any holes, they're all like entailed that they don't believe in gunk, because gunk, for example, is something which by definition has proper parts, because gunk is an object, like a gunky object is anything which all of its proper parts have further proper parts, right? And it also will have by definition proper parts. So it won't just be like vacuously that all of its proper parts have proper parts, because it wouldn't be satisfied. So, right, like atomists, right, can obviously disagree that there's composition, right? Atomists can obviously disagree that there's any composition, because anybody who disagrees that there's any composition is by definition an atomist. So what are you on about?
Oh, but again, when you're talking about atomism, which basically is an ontology and a philosophy on nature, that presupposes composition on a semantic, meteorological, and scientific level. In fact, I can prove this. One second, I can prove this from the sutras, which speaks on semantic and meteorological atomism. Have you read the sutras?
What?
Why are you saying what so?
Why? How? What? I'm just. How are the sutras getting?
Because semantic and meteorological atomism plays a key role in Vedic philosophy, which is found in the sutras.
What is the relevance of any of this? Why are you even bringing this up?
Because I'm just asking you a basic question on semantic and meteorological atomism, and you're just kind of flipping.
This is not a basic question at all. You're randomly bringing up the sutras.
Yeah, I said that it's in the sutras, right? Because this plays a key role in Vedic philosophy, but it's a basic question altogether about semantic and meteorological atomism.
Semantic and meteorological atomism.
Yeah, are you?
How is this a basic question? Do you know? Like, can you define what a basic question is?
Yeah, just a simple.
I'm just like completely confused, like why you're randomly bringing up the sutras and electron orbitals in a discussion about divine simplicity.
One second, yeah, I'm speaking. Yeah, because again, atomism on a scientific, semantic, and meteorological level presupposes composition. Therefore, when you make a meteorological claim against me, you're presupposing that energies, which we take as properties, activities, attributes, etc., are parts. You're already reading that presupposition into it.
Well, you want my argument for that they are parts? So my argument is basically just, I gave an argument against non-meteorological composition, right? So non-meteorological composition does not exist, and then I'll say a constituent ontology is true. and it would just follow if every constituent is a part that properties are parts from a constituent ontology, right? And I suppose I can give an argument for a non-constituent or for a constituent ontology would just be that if a non-constituent ontology is true, then whenever you're like perceiving a thing or talking about a thing, you're talking about a bare particular. But if everything is like the thing in itself, like if everything's a bare particular, right? Because the properties, it would just be like that it has like some like external relation to it would have some like external relation to these like properties, and then that's since it would have them, but it would still be a bare particular, right? If everything, I'm talking, don't interrupt me. All right. So if everything is a bare particular, right, then there would be absolutely nothing that could differentiate everything from each other, right? Because you'd also have to realize that properties themselves wouldn't have, like, the property in itself wouldn't have properties. And the property in itself would have the exact same properties as everything in itself and every other thing, because everything in itself would have no properties. And every property in itself would have no properties. So there's no way to like account for like why there's distinctions on a non-constituent ontology. All right, now you go.
Oh, all right, great. So one second, you make multiple points, right? And I want to examine each one, right? So you're talking about the relation. So are you speaking of relation between the essence and the energies? Do you want to speak on that? And then we can get into your first premise, which had to do with meteorological, non-meteorological parts or composition.
So my argument, I'm just making an argument that why attributes are parts, right?
All right, great. And I'm saying, let's first talk about how the attributes, the energies, relate to the essence, right? So do you know in Eastern Orthodox theology, since you want to argue against the Eastern Orthodox...
Wait, can you respond to my argument and like instead of going on like another tangent, like respond to my argument against a non-constituent ontology and respond to my argument against non-meteorological composition. I don't want you to go on another tangent.
You complain about me over talking you, yet you do the exact same thing. But then when I overtalk you, you mute me. So this is just an...
I'm over talking you as you're over talking me, which is exactly what you said. But in this case, it's actually true.
I'm interrupting your interruptions.
I'm interrupting your interruptions, but in this case, it's actually what I'm doing.
It was my time to speak. It was my time to speak, and you.
I was talking. Look. You can't just say it's my time to speak as I'm speaking. You can't just say that. It's fine because it was my time to speak, but you were speaking while I was speaking, and you just like randomly interrupted me.
You finished your syllogism. And then you unmuted me. I was making my point, and then you just started over.
But your point had nothing to do with my syllogism. It had absolutely nothing to do with my argument. You went on just a random tangent. I just want you to respond to one of my arguments because you haven't responded to a single thing I've said.
All right. Can you respond to it?
1 second. I'm questioning syllogism. When someone makes a syllogism, when someone makes a syllogism, you're not just absolutely bound to say, okay, well, I have to accept all the premises and then accept the conclusion. And
but you're not arguing against the premises. You're not arguing against the premises.
Can you actually talk about the argument and?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. And
you're just going in a random tangent about some Greek person.
I'm applying 1 second.
Several thousand years ago, who I don't care about.
1 second. I'm applying the Socratic method. I'm questioning you on your syllogism. So, do you know the Eastern Orthodox position on the relation between the essence of God and the energies of God? Do you know it? Yes or no?
It's non-numeric identity. You think that they're non-identical.
No, that doesn't refer to the relation. I'm asking, how do they actually relate?
Distinction, right?
Okay. You're just giving me a tautology. I'm asking you how they relate.
That's not a tautology to say that they are. Identity is a relation.
One second.
Distinction is a relation. That's not a tautology to say that they're related by distinction. What are you talking about?
No, when you say non-identical, right, which means differentiation, and then I question you again, and you just say, oh, they're distinct, right? You're giving me a tautology. You're saying the exact same thing with different words.
No. Well, that actually is a tautology, but that's just because you didn't understand what I said.
No, I did understand what you say, but I have a question. Do you know how about this? Do you know what transcendency means? Because that's a relation between essence and energy, that the essence transcends the energies to an infinite degree, an infinite number of times.
I mean, it's kind of like an analogical thing that you're just saying that it's like totally different than, right? All right. So please tell me
But
how
you
this
know- one
refutes my
second,
argument
you know
against
one
against
second,
bare
but you know-
particulars.
Yeah, one second, because you're talking about the relation between nature, substance, or essence, right, with properties, attributes, or energies, right? So that's what I'm getting to. I'm getting to the very relation in of itself, right? So that's what I'm that's what I'm critiquing you on. So again, the transcendency, do you know what transcendency means?
I mean, I don't think it's very clear. Like, I think it's just kind of like a metaphor, kind of. I don't know.
It refers to the mode in which you exist, right? It refers to the mode in which you exist. And since the energies are infinite and the essence is beyond infinity, right? Is beyond infinity, then my question to you is that you're talking about meteorological part and you're getting into atomism, which, by the way, if you knew anything about semantic atomism in Vedic philosophy, then you would know that your argument is not applicable here. But
What?
yeah, I asked you about semantic atomism and the Vedic philosophy in terms of its applications in atomism, and you just didn't understand what I was saying because you haven't read the sutras, which is an essential read on atomism.
I don't even know where to go.
I'm questioning your premises, right? And I'm speaking of the relation between
Which
God.
premise are you questioning?
I'm questioning the part where you talked about the relation of properties.
All right. So, like, which premise is that? Do you remember? Do you even remember what my argument is?
Well, you did. Well, one second, you didn't even number it out. Second of all, you made multiple. You made.
Well, I mean, it would be implied by which order I said them in.
Right, but I wasn't like, oh, but I wasn't counting it out, right? I don't have a pen and paper, and I'm like, oh, this is.
All right. Well,
you weren't like
I mean,
premise to this. You were just making.
I spent a while on them, so you should like realize what the order was. But so the first thing I said was that the first thing that I said was that basically every constituent is a part, right? That was the first premise, and then the next one.
As a constituent, and what are you defining as a constituent?
Constituent, like for something to constitute something else, it's kind of like a primitive notion. I don't need to define that.
And are you saying that the properties constitute the essence?
No, we're saying the properties constitute God in this case.
Okay, and how do they constitute God? Can you tell me?
Well, for you, right? Well, I mean, that was the next premise, right? The next premise was that properties are constituents because I gave an argument against the non-constituent ontology, which is one where properties aren't constituents. And do you remember what that one was? Or were you just paying no attention to what I said?
No, I'm paying attention to what you said, but you made so many.
All right, so what was my argument? Repeat what my argument was.
Well, no, your argument was based on non-meteorological composition. That
was the first premise. I'm asking my argument for the second premise.
Your second premise, why does that matter? I'm speaking on your first premise now.
But you weren't. We're speaking about why properties are parts, right? That's the second premise.
Okay. All right, my bad. Someone just came in the room. So you were saying? My bad.
So the second premise was my argument against the non-constituent ontology, right? So what was my argument against the non-constituent ontology? I spent several minutes on it.
I'm questioning. Well, first of all, you didn't spend several minutes on it. Second of all, I want to focus on your first premise, and I want to go through each premise, right? Because this is what you do. You give all these premises, and then you don't let people. And one second.
Two premises.
You didn't give two premises. You gave multiple premises, as you admitted 5 minutes ago.
Two is multiple.
Yes, you said multiple premises. You made 3, 4, 5.
Two is multiple.
I know 2 is multiple, but you didn't specify.
But then why did you say no? You said multiple, not 2.
I have a question. Answer yes or no. Answer yes or no. Was your second premise, did it have to do with relation of properties? Yes or no?
Sure. Yeah, it did.
Oh, it did. So you're pulling special pleading because you made a new premise after.
No. I've been consistent this entire time. My second premise, the argument was that an argument that properties are constituents, right?
All right, great. So you're speaking of properties are constituents. How does that have to do with the relation of properties to the essence?
Well, it has to. I mean, we're not talking about the relation of properties to the essence here. We're talking about the relation of properties to like the substance.
We're speaking of the essence energy distinction, and by the way,
it's the essence of God and the energies of God, right? So what are the energies and the essence, the energies and essence of? And what's the thing which we're talking about that could or could not have parts?
Yes, the essence of God. The essence of God is the essence of God, right? Of God and the energy.
Right. It's right. Okay. So what we're talking about having or not having parts this in the discussion, right, is God, right?
Right, and I'm critiquing your premises
How?
because I'm questioning you on each one.
I mean, not
I'm
very
applying the
well.
Socratic method. I'm applying the Socratic method. What are you talking about?
Is the Socratic method just like spurging and like yelling at people?
Well, no, you can insult me. And first of all, I wasn't the one yelling at you. You're the one yelling at me, muting me, not letting me speak most of the time, etc., etc. I'm applying the Socratic
Not
method.
most of the time.
You can get your opinion because your opinion is completely subjective, as I've presented in my opening statement, which still holds scrutiny. All right. So
This is getting.
one second. So let's.
This has been too much time because I have to start making dinner soon.
Okay. So you can't. So 1 second. So you don't have any more time to debate.
Well, I mean, I'll have a little bit more time, but I have to start dinner soon. So like, let's try to wrap this up. So I just want you to give an argument against my second premise, right?
And 1 second, and that's what I want to go to. So go into your second premise in details. Go into it, right?
My argument, yeah. So my argument is that if a non-constituent ontology is true, then everything in itself is like has no properties, right? Like.
All right, and I have a question. Do you believe that the essence of God, since you mentioned ontology, which is the branch of
So
metaphysics,
it won't have differentiate. Nothing will differentiate everything in itself.
All right, and I have a question. And now that you made that point, 2 points to make here, right? So ontology is a branch of metaphysics that deals with being. So one, what are you presupposing is the being of God? And two, what are you and what is the differentiating factor between the energies according to you? Because I think that's very important to lay out here.
I don't. I'm trying. Okay. I'm trying to say that there isn't a differentiation between the two.
There isn't a
But
differentiation.
my argument isn't an argument specifically about this one topic. It's an argument against like non-constituent ontologies in general and why we have to say that properties are parts, right?
All right, great. And you're talking about non-constituency. So again, I want you to go to, one second. Who's interrupting? Evan Socrates, yeah, just mute him. All right. So, anyways, I'm asking you to go into more details on that. You just keep on restating your position, and then you insult me. I'm asking you, can you explain it and explicate it in the Socratic method? Yes or no?
Okay.
All right, great. So,
All right. I've just had enough at this point. So
all right, yeah.
I'm
all right, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? You accuse me of being.
you're just not like responding to anything I'm saying. You're just going on these like random rants about the energies.
Because I disagree with your premises, and I'm critiquing them through the Socratic.
But you're not even critiquing them. You're just like randomly going on these rants and then saying that they're a critique of them.
No, I'm questioning you, and then I explicate on my questioning through my statement.
But your questions don't make any sense at all. Like, they're just like completely unrelated.
Prepared. I mean, it's not my fault you came unprepared. You know nothing on theology, as you've admitted, so that's a big preparation. And then when I
the topic wasn't about that. I already told you ahead of time what the topic was about.
Right, and you realize
I came up prepared for a debate that wasn't supposed to happen.
1 second, it's on the essence.
This wasn't supposed to be what the debate was, and I already told you ahead of time.
You messaged me, Kayak. You messaged me. I never. Kayak. I'm correcting you here. You messaged me, and you said explicitly, I can show everyone through the screen sharing. You said debate me on EED. Debate me on ADS versus polytheism, and I'm trying to demonstrate how, first of all, theology is not divorced from philosophy, and how theologically and philosophically.
But all right. But you're missing something out. You're missing the part where I told you ahead of time, right, that the debate is specifically supposed to be a philosophical debate exclusively.
No,
in VC, I told you this in VC recently.
I was at work.
You did. You absolutely. All right. There's people who could testify to this happening in this call. In fact, I'll mute them.
1 second. That's not what you said. You said you just don't know that much on theology. You said that's not what you read up on.
That was my reasoning. But that's not what I said. That was my reasoning for why I didn't want to have a debate about that specific thing.
Right. Well, how about this? I can just apply that to you, and I can say, okay, well, here's the thing. I study both philosophy and theology, so why can't I apply that standard on you? Why are you the dictator of this conversation?
What? Because
why are you?
Because I okay, no. The reason why is because I was the one who set up the entire debate, right? And I was the one who offered it to you. I like did all of it. Like the person who I'm debating who isn't doing all this is not the one who decides what the debate's about. You are also
Offering the debate does not mean
you're the one who
debate
agreed to have a debate
discussion.
with me, right?
1 second. Offering the debate does not mean you get to dictate it in every theological. And
But you
philosophical-
like okay, no, it's not like you warned me about any of this. You just like you told me about it
No, I
like a
told
day
you I was
before
gonna-
it. You told me about it like several hours before it happened that you were going to have the debate entirely be based on the church fathers. And Well,
Yo,
yeah, I
can we
very
get some
clearly-
closing remarks or something and just call it a day?
All right, so 1 second. I want to continue this very quickly because I want to get somewhere. So first of all, my main argument was that philosophy and theology are not divorced. And looking at what the church fathers say, both philosophically and theologically speaking, it just refutes your argument. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate. And you're like, oh, but I don't care about theology.
Which premise does it refute? Which premise does it refute my argument?
Well, 1 second. It first refutes the fact that you believe that the distinctions in Christ do not entail composition nor division, right? So why can't you apply that to triadology, even though that's what all the church fathers say you must do? How we understand Christology is how we understand triadology. You never answered that.
Banned. All right, this is over.
Bruh.
The reason that Kayak had banned Mumkey is because he felt as if Mumkey wasn't addressing his argument, that he was just speaking a lot of gibberish, and went off topic a bunch of times, and he got interrupted. Well, the list goes on, actually. I don't know if I can actually name them all. But I hope you guys enjoyed this debate, and I hope to see you guys soon. Goodbye.